Good morning, good afternoon, good day, wherever you are. Welcome back to episode 6 of the Waveform podcast. I'm your host, Marquez Brownlee.
And I'm Andrew Manganelli.
And we've got some great stuff planned for you in a pretty long podcast. So in this episode, we'll talk through the new family of current and future Microsoft products and our trip to their campus. And then we have our first ever guest in Waveform history, fellow tech YouTuber Quinn from SnazzyLabs, and also possibly the only YouTuber I know that's taller than me. And we'll talk about Tesla, talk about Hackintosh, live streaming, we got Q&A. It's a big one. Buckle up. Welcome to Techtober.
So normally we hit this part up with a recap of everything, but I think we're going to stretch our recap out a little further than normal. So let's do a content suggestion beforehand.
Okay.
I think I have a pretty good one for you. You've probably heard about it, but there's a new series on Netflix called Inside Bill's Brain, and it's a documentary all about Bill Gates.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about Microsoft later, so I think it's a perfect episode to talk about this. And actually, on our trip back from Microsoft, I watched it on the plane, and it was pretty fascinating.
I love that it exists. When I was thinking about that Bill Gates interview we did, the whole process leading up to that was me watching as much information about Bill's past interviews and possible things to ask him as I possibly could. So I think that would be an interesting addition to watch.
Yeah, I think just talking to him for like 20 minutes that we did was just kind of mind-blowing, listening to him talk and how quickly he thinks of things and how he thinks of things. And now you got a guy who was with him for 2 years, so imagine how deep he goes. Really, really great. It kind of goes over his early life. It goes over meeting Melinda and how much him and Melinda have done in the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and then all about everything he did at Microsoft, how he started Microsoft, how he went through them being called a monopoly, how he solves problems. It's
okay. So I'll check. And that's Netflix, you said?
Netflix, yeah. Highly
all right.
recommend it.
Inside Bill's mind.
Bill's brain.
Inside Bill's brain. Perfect. Nice. All right, so we can jump into a quick recap of other videos leading up to what we have now from the last podcast. So we had the OnePlus 7T review.
Yeah.
It's an interesting phone. I don't really have any fact corrections or anything other than it's just a fascinating existence for this phone because it's coming to the US where allegedly the OnePlus 7T Pro that might come later this year will not come to the US, which is backwards. So last year, the OnePlus 7 did not come to the US and the OnePlus 7 Pro did. So it's kind of a flip. And I was really looking forward to OnePlus 7T Pro or whatever the next Pro phone is called. So that'll be interesting. But in a lot of ways, this 7T is better than the 7 Pro, even though it's cheaper.
But you stayed on the 7 Pro, right?
I did a little flip-flop.
Oh, yeah.
I was reviewing the 7T, and I had some little gripes about the display, so when I was finished reviewing it, I did switch back to the 7 Pro.
Okay.
And then I got really annoyed with the curved screens again.
Oh, wow.
And I switched back, and I'm back on the 7T, on the flat screen.
I didn't know that. I have to pay more attention at work, apparently, because I didn't even notice that.
So I'm dailying the OnePlus 7T. We have Pixel right around the corner. We have possibly another OnePlus announcement coming out this year. But as of right now, OnePlus 7T, despite its lower resolution display, is in my pocket.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. So that review came out. You can check that out. And, of course, we also had iPhone 11. Gosh, we've talked about these phones so much, but the iPhone 11 review, the theme of it was it's just so easy. Everything about this phone it's easy to recommend. It's easy to review and explain what's new. Honestly, if you're probably going to recommend a phone to your mom to upgrade her iPhone, or your friend who's just like, hey, are these new phones any good? It's a sentence or two of yeah, well, the iPhone 11's pretty great. Nice camera, good battery. It's an iPhone. You probably like it if you like iPhones.
That conversation is probably, should I get the new iPhone? Yes.
Yeah, go for it.
There you go.
No glaring issues. Yeah, so super easy. So those two reviews came out this week, and then we arrived at Microsoft Week.
Yes.
Slowly, but also kind of quickly, Microsoft has arrived as one of the most exciting tech companies of the second half of this year. Is that fair to say?
I think that's fair to say.
So they announced and unveiled a whole ton of products. A week ago, we were out on that top secret trip to, now we can say, it was Microsoft's headquarters near Seattle up in Redmond, Washington. And we got a sneak peek at all of the stuff that came out today. The Surface Pro 7, the Surface Laptop 3, the Surface Pro X, the Surface headphones, or earbuds.
Earbuds, yeah.
And then we had a little bit of a sneak peek at the Surface Neo and the Surface Duo. All of the first things I talked about are coming out in this holiday season. They're actually already up for pre-order. And then the last two, Surface Neo and Surface Duo, these foldables, are coming out next year. So they gave us a little bit of a sneak preview.
It was official for next year, or was that just future product?
They ended up saying on stage it will be for holiday season 2020.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's really exciting, actually.
Yeah, and I'm pumped for those things. So I guess let's just break down quickly the things that came out this year. So the Surface Pro 7 is maybe the most boring update. It looks the same as the Surface Pro 6, but it has USB Type-C and has the new Intel chips inside. So it's a minor refresh.
Yeah.
So, of course, continuing that line that's been pretty successful, safe, easy, similar to what Apple's doing. But now we also have the sort of next generation of Surface, which is also a 2-in-1, also with a kickstand, Surface Pro X. It's much thinner. It's got 2 USB Type-C ports. It comes in matte black, and it's ARM-based. So it's got these thinner bezels, a little bit of a bigger 13-inch screen. And I thought it was kind of nice. I don't know if you got to hold
really
any
cool.
of these things, but like holding it was encouraging. It was a good weight. The kickstand felt sturdy.
For sure.
And these are all things that Microsoft spends a ton of time on, as we'll mention later, and the stuff we talked about the labs. But I think the Surface Pro X was pretty interesting looking.
I thought one of the coolest things about it seems almost low tech, but where they stored the pencil in the case, it's just like literally just the little flip up case flipped up a little tiny more. You wouldn't even notice it, and then you flip it down and there's the pencil, and it was charging the whole time.
And the thing about that being it's sitting there the entire time is it's wireless charging in there, so every time you take it out it's at 100%. So it's kind of a little bit better. I always get a little bit annoyed by the iPad Pro pencil. Yes, it is magnetized to the side, but as soon as I put it in my bag it just falls off.
Yeah,
it's cool else. It's cool that it sort of latches on there and charges, but it's not sort of natively comfortable there all the time. So this is really cool. So it'll always be charged 100% every time you take it out of that little cradle and put it back, and you'll never worry about battery life on it. It's pretty cool. And then there was the Surface Laptop 3. I like this a lot. I think I'm going to try to make that Surface Laptop 3 13-inch my new daily laptop, because I don't need a Mac necessarily on my laptop anymore. The Surface Laptop 2 in matte black was my favorite Windows laptop of last year. It was almost perfect, except for the lack of USB Type-C. Now it has one USB Type-C port.
Okay.
It fast charges, but still through that sort of proprietary charger, which is a little bit annoying. I kind of wish there were like 3 USB Type-C ports and it charged via one of them. So that's maybe the only bummer, but it's glad to see that there's a USB Type-C port there.
You can still charge through the USB-C though, right?
I'm not actually sure, because we didn't have a USB-C port last year. It would make sense, yes. Maybe not fast charging.
If I remember correctly, and don't quote me on this, he said you can still charge through USB-C, but the proprietary is still there because it offers fast charging. And
Okay, that makes sense. So if I just bring around whatever USB-C charger I bring for everything, it'll still work. Maybe just not 80% in half an hour or an hour. So that's still encouraging. Either way, I want to daily that. I'm excited for it. I think that's going to be a fun one.
Did last year's have the Alcantara on matte black? Because they changed that a little bit this year, where I think 2 models don't have it and 2 models do have it.
Let me go look at it right now.
Okay.
Hold on.
Sorry.
So yeah, it's got that Alcantara keyboard and the soft touch like hand palm rest or whatever when you're up against the laptop. The little bit of a taller aspect ratio I also kind of like, because a lot of stuff I'm doing on my laptop is writing. I have 2 windows open next to each other. I want them to be kind of tall.
Sure.
So the screen's great. It's a touchscreen. I don't use touchscreens on laptops at all. Are you a touchscreen laptop guy?
I'm not. In fact, I find most of the time when I'm using a laptop that has a touchscreen, I'll go try and wipe a smudge off it, and Lord knows what's going to happen on the screen. I'm resizing a window or closing out of something. So I don't know. For me, touchscreen's not a big thing. I've seen people who are good at touchscreen, and it's really impressive. I think Linus has come in here before, and
he just dangles that thing.
He just dangles that laptop while he's walking around, but I've seen him just like tap screen, tap tap. So I guess if you're good at it, it's probably pretty useful, but it's not something.
If you get in the flow, if you get in that flow, it can be really good. That's just a phrase they like saying often on stage. Get in the flow. If you get in that workflow, then you can make the touchscreen useful. I also made it was an older video, kind of an embarrassingly old video about where I talked about why I don't use touchscreen laptops, and this hinge wobble. No matter how good the hinge is on any laptop, every single laptop, it will always wobble when you touch the screen. So, I'm a trackpad kind of guy, and the trackpad's 20% bigger on the new ones. So, I'm pumped. I'll leave it at that. You can watch the impressions video if you haven't seen it, but we'll get that in for review, and definitely check it out. There's also a 15-inch variant with AMD Ryzen chips that are custom engineered as well. So, whole bunch going on with Microsoft. Definitely watch those videos. And by the time you hear this, there may also be the interview with Satya Nadella up on the channel. Just a ton happening in October already. I would like to talk about the future devices, though, too, because those are actually pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So they had Surface Neo and Surface Duo. Surface Neo was, they were both foldable, and they were both dual screen. Surface Neo was more of the size of like a small laptop, and one screen on each side, and Surface Duo was more like a clamshell phone type of thing.
Yeah,
5.5
one-handed.
inch. One-handed, sure. Exactly. And no screens on the outside, so there's just these clean, super thin, like really, really thin devices. And on one hand, I got to wonder, it's sort of fascinating, like, why is Microsoft showing us these super early things a year in advance? But the more you think about it, the more it makes sense. They need to get app developers on board to start making their apps compatible. There's a new fork of Windows. It's Windows 10X. There's going to be an Android version on the smaller phone. I guess we're calling it a phone, but it's also sort of like a phone tablet type thing. Yeah. But either way, super early to be showing us this, but I like the idea of the 360 hinge. We have this folding phone world happening, unfolding in front of us.
Oh, man.
But I kind of like that idea.
I do, too. When he first pulled it out, we've seen the fold. So when I first saw it, I was like, oh, man. Like, that's not that cool, because we saw one where it actually does that.
Right.
But then
the gut reaction is like, oh, this isn't really a folding screen.
Exactly.
That's not so cool.
But then the minute he started holding it, opening it, and like flipping it up on the back of each other, I was like, wait a minute. We're at a whole different aspect here. Like, maybe the screen doesn't connect in the middle, but there's so much more you can do now being able to fold that in a 360 degree.
Yeah, and I think we got to the Galaxy Fold and like trying to fold it backwards, because obviously the hinge stops at 180 degrees. This one, you don't have to worry about that as much.
No.
So I like the idea of being able to just like flip it open, have half your screen when you want it sometimes, and then immediately open it up and have both of them. I'm just like, I can't believe how thin they are. I can't tell you how small I think those batteries are in there.
Yeah, he literally, the way he showed us Duo's the smaller one, right?
Right.
He had it in his pocket the whole time, and we didn't even notice. And he's just like, oh, yeah, and there's this one, too. And he pulls it out of his back pocket, and I was like, oh.
Jeez.
Wow, yeah. But you're
tiny.
You're saying you're concerned about battery life?
Yeah, potentially. Because anytime you have a screen that big compared to the device, you look at, how long is battery going to last? And then also when it's that thin, battery has to be small. It folds in half, so you're splitting the battery in half. So now they're not going the whole width of the phone. So, we'll see. There's a lot of questions yet to be answered. There's no spec list for it yet. This is just sort of getting it out there ahead of. Is this the ultimate leak combat strategy? Is announce it a year early?
Announce it a year.
This is kind of the extreme of that, right?
That's a pretty good point. It's going to be hard to leak stuff
if you just announce it before it comes out.
Wow.
Yeah,
this is going to make events really boring or really exciting. Really boring for the thing you're about to play with, but then really excited for the next year. Yeah, I'm surprised Microsoft didn't show off the Pixel 4 at the end of it.
Honestly, if they just pulled the Pixel 4 out their back pocket, I would not have been shocked.
Not at all.
So I'm really looking forward to seeing the Pixel 5, 6, and 7 at our Google event this year. All right. But I think the most underrated part that we didn't really show too much in the videos was the sort of campus tour that we did, where we saw a lot of the behind the scenes.
I would say that tour, I went into it being super excited to just see the campus. All these tech campuses are always fascinating to see, but seeing the behind the scenes and that whole design process blew my expectations. There were some really, really cool things we saw in there. Where should we even start?
Well, they had pretty much every imaginable machine. Anytime you go to one of these, they sort of show you a couple different design iterations of each product. So for the headphones, for example, which are kind of interesting looking, but they showed us like 9, 10 different previous, much uglier versions of the headphones before they arrived at that finished final look. For the Alcantara, they bring in these samples and they try to get just the right thickness and just the right texture of the Alcantara material on the laptops before they actually decide to manufacture it. And there's all these things that sort of go into that process. But maybe, I'm gonna go ahead and say the best part was the anechoic chamber.
Oh, for sure.
That was so.
So real quick, what are we're saying anechoic? Does that mean anti-echo?
Anechoic. I don't actually know the etymology of the word anechoic, but it
makes sense if that's how you think about it.
Yeah. There are no echoes.
Yeah.
So there's a brief clip in there, and I'll probably post a photo. But it is the Guinness World Record quietest room in the world, And that's, I guess, by the amount of reduction from the outside noise. So the actual ambient noise level in the room is like...
It was negative 20.6.
Negative 20.6 dB.
Previous record was negative 13. That's all they had to beat. And I was watching a video that I'm going to post in the show notes. For this guy named Gopal. He was the best.
Gopal's a legend.
Yeah, I honestly think we might have to get him on the podcast one day. It would be cool to do the podcast in the chamber.
So maybe paint a picture for me of like, we were outside of it with all our video gear, getting ready to walk in. It sounds normal when you're outside. Paint a picture of like outside versus inside and closing the door behind us. What was that like?
Cool. So like, we all got there. We met Gopal. There's this big metal door. It looked kind of like a walk-in freezer at like a restaurant.
Huge door.
Yeah. He opens that up and you kind of see this like little bridge. And when you walk in there, you realize that you're walking into a room that the entirety of around the room probably has like a 3 to 4 foot gap. So he explained to us that nothing in this room was attached to the rest of the building that it's within. Pretty much, they drilled all the concrete out from around this room, set it on a bunch of gigantic springs that I think is on its own foundation to avoid any type of structure noise from the building, which just at that point is pretty incredible.
It's a floating room within a room.
Much, yeah.
And I think it was another floating room within that room. So there was no floor when we actually walked in. So yeah, and you walk in and there's this gigantic amount of foam everywhere, and you're walking on a wire floor so that there's more foam beneath your feet, and you're sort of suspended in this space. And then they close the door behind you.
I'd say even before they close the door, it just feels off. Like the amount of echo is so reduced, even with the door wide open. And he did a demonstration where he started clapping, and you're like, okay, that sounds kind of strange. And then he closes the door, and literally zero echo from the clap, which is, it sounds weird. It just sounds like a clap, but a clap with no echo is strange.
It's kind of weird. And but like being in that room, and this is like the audio nerd in me coming out, is there was absolutely no reverb, which meant like the voice you hear in this microphone was like the voice you would hear of me 6 feet away from you talking to you.
Minus the doors slamming in the background.
Minus the background noise. Like literally no background noise at all. If I walk up to you, like I don't know if you remember really, really early in this studio, if you clapped in this basically empty room, you would hear the echo of that clap for a couple seconds in a row.
Yeah.
Even in a normal room like this, there's a little bit of reverb and echo and bouncing off the walls, and your ears use that to sort of determine how big the room you're in is. When you get in this room and there's no echo at all, you lose all sense of how big or small the room you're in is, and you can instantly pinpoint exactly where people are around you.
It was strange.
And then the cherry on top was you turn the light off for a second.
Yeah, I feel like you very quickly start to hear yourself swallow, then you can hear other people swallow. You can just hear literally everything, and then the lights go off, and that was almost overwhelming. It
was like
in a
floating
sense.
In space for a second.
It was very, very strange. I think Brandon started laughing at one point because it was just so quiet and you didn't know what to do. And I think everyone was trying not to make noise, but then you knew you had to not make noise like inside of your body because other people
impossible.
Could hear it.
You literally hear yourself blink, and you hear your own heart beating, and like you can hear your hair growing. My favorite story is I'll just say, not to spoil it, but he had other people in this room and had done this demo before, and he was in the room and he's used to hearing people's watches, and he remembers one of the people next to him, he sort of heard like a tick.
Yeah. And
when he turned the light back on, he mentioned to the guy, "Hey, I heard your watch ticking." And the guy said, "I'm not wearing a watch." And he went, "Oh, interesting. What? Well, I was hearing that noise. What is that, a pacemaker or like some other, something making a constant clicking noise?" And it said the guy had recently a heart valve transplant. He had an artificial heart valve.
Yeah.
And that was the sound of it opening and closing as his heart was beating once per second. And
everyone in the room could hear it, apparently.
Yeah, you could hear that inside the chest of the person next to you 3 feet away. That's just wild. That's unbelievable.
It's completely crazy.
So if you ever get a chance to go in an anechoic chamber, even if it's not for a lab tour or some important reason, it's kind of fun.
Yeah, and Microsoft uses it for actual products, not just to listen to heart valves. Or
people
not
just
swallowing.
Being creeps.
And... Some really cool stuff. Yeah, I think one of them was they go into the process of what it sounds like when you shut your laptop, because they said a nice sound. Yeah, let's get a little Surface ASMR
here's
here.
Surface Pro 2.
Ooh,
that's satisfying.
that was perfect.
Something about the keyboard clacking is very confidence inspiring.
Yeah, I think they said that Mercedes was one of the first car manufacturers to design not design a sound, but to have a nice crisp sound when the door's shut, because it made people feel more secure driving when they knew their car doors were shut. So that's kind of what they brought into the
I'd like to believe
lineup.
They engineered that sound, but I also think that might have been a coincidence, and they just realized it was a satisfying sound.
For sure. And then they probably tried to copy it.
Exactly. There you go. Either way, they test fan noise, they test all sorts of other things, like the computers in there. But that was a lot of fun. Shout out to Gopal. If we can get him on the podcast, that would actually be, I would love that.
Yeah, for sure.
I would love that so much.
For sure. Quick thank you to Grace and Dan for showing us around Microsoft all day, and to all the engineers that took time out of their schedule. I mean, this was a week before their launch event. They probably all had stuff to do, and they all sat down and talked with us for hours. And like we said, Satya took some time. He was super nice, spoke with us for a while before the biggest event of their year.
Yeah.
It was incredible. I thought we made a couple pretty good videos out of it.
Yeah, big shout out to them. Again, you can check out the product videos on the current products, on the foldables, on all that sort of stuff. It's all live on the channel, and it was a lot of fun. So let's take a quick break and come back with our first guest, Quinn from SnazzyLabs. See you soon. This episode of Waveform is brought to you by SimpliSafe. On average, a burglary happens once every 23 seconds in the U.S. There are approximately 2 million burglaries reported a year in the United States. And what's crazy about all that is only 1 in 5 homes have home security. And that's probably because most companies don't really make it all that easy. Most home security systems are either a giant and expensive hassle to get started, or they're low quality and not very user-friendly. And when it comes to the safety of your home, you never want to go low on quality. So that's why SimpliSafe is a top choice for protecting your home. SimpliSafe protects every door, window, and room with 24/7 professional monitoring, and they make it easy. There's no hidden fees or fine print. It's won tons of awards from places like CNET and the New York Times Wirecutter. And SimpliSafe offers around-the-clock monitoring for just $15 a month. But the one thing that truly makes SimpliSafe stand out is their video verification technology. So when other home systems are triggered, a lot of the time police assume it's a false alarm and the call goes to the bottom of the list, but not with SimpliSafe. Using their video verification technology, they're able to visually confirm that a break-in is happening, allowing the police to get to the scene 3.5 times faster than other home security companies. And for our listeners, SimpliSafe has a huge deal going on right now. Go to simplisafe.com/wave and get free shipping and a money-back guarantee. That's SIMPLI safe.com/WAVE today. Simplisafe.com/wave. This episode of Waveform is also brought to you by Policy Genius. So it's October, and while our community likes to call it Techtober, I think most other people know of it as the epitome of fall and, best of all, Halloween. And we don't decorate too often in the studio, but if you've been watching a while, we actually did a live stream a few years ago where we carved the scariest thing we could think of into a pumpkin. We actually created a dead phone battery jack-o'-lantern.
Yeah, during that live stream, I really thought you were going to cut your finger off. You just had this like wobbly box cutter.
I was using a box cutter.
It was
yeah,
pretty bad.
Not the best idea. So if you've got a family, you might think of dealing with something a little bit scarier right now, shopping for life insurance. I think it's safe to say that the majority of people don't know the first thing when it comes to shopping for life insurance. So if the idea of looking for life insurance scares or intimidates you, like Halloween does, try PolicyGenius.com. PolicyGenius is the easy way to shop for life insurance online. So in minutes, you can compare quotes from top insurers to find your best price. Once you apply, the PolicyGenius team will handle all your paperwork and red tape. And PolicyGenius doesn't just make life insurance easy, they can also help you find the right home, auto, and disability insurance. So this October, take the scariness out of buying life insurance with Policy Genius. Go to PolicyGenius.com, get quotes, and apply in minutes. You can do the whole thing on your phone right now. Policy Genius, the easy way to compare and buy life insurance. All right, we're back with our first guest. Welcome, Quinn from SnazzyLabs, to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, man.
This is the first time we've ever had a guest, and I have no idea how to do this.
Well, that's all right. I'm a good guest to bring on for the first time because you can impress me pretty easily. So.
Do you have any tips about how to have guests rather than not having guests? You have a podcast, right?
I don't yet.
Oh, really?
Gotta watch out, though.
All right. Well, this is
can't
great.
wait.
For first time we're all on a podcast together. Welcome to the studio, first of all.
Thanks.
And great to have you. I'm a big fan of your videos. I'm sure you already knew that. I've been watching for years, since before you took that break. So this is I don't know, how many years have you been making videos now?
It'll be 11 years in December.
11? Does that make you feel old?
We've both been doing this forever, man.
It's a really long time.
It does make me feel old. In fact, in a couple more years, I will have been doing YouTube longer than I have not been doing YouTube.
That's a big step. Yeah. More than half your life.
Yeah.
So for the listeners out there who might not know exactly what you do, because you're a tech channel, but how would you describe your videos to someone who hasn't seen them yet?
I would say expect the unexpected.
Oh.
We mostly focus on Apple.
Sure.
But we do a lot of kind of DIY projects and just unusual computer builds, stuff that's not so much the norm, I guess.
Right.
For good and bad.
What's your last video?
Our last video is a weird one. I am not a cinematographer. My videos have never looked as good as yours, and I've never tried to make them look as good as yours because it's a losing battle. But I do own a C200 cinema camera, and I have a cinematographer that works with me, and he's much more talented than I, hence the reason for his job. And I challenged him in a competition, me with the cinema camera and him with an iPhone 11, on who could make a better digital short.
Okay. I haven't watched the entire thing yet, but I'm very curious because I've just finished my iPhone 11 review, and that's got its whole theme or whatever about how easy it is to review. That's a whole separate thing. But the cameras on this phone have been pretty much the main thing people are talking about, how fantastic of a video and photo camera it is. I'm curious. I have a question for you.
Sure.
And this, because there's an easy way to answer this question, which is kind of like a yes or no, or like a really exploring it. But do you think you could start a YouTube channel today in 2019 with just your smartphone camera?
Absolutely.
And would it be any good?
100%.
Okay. Yeah.
I've always been of the opinion that the content merits more recognition perhaps than the production value, at least from the get-go, from the beginning.
Right.
But I mean, if you go back and look at our old videos,
that's what you gotta look back at.
And we got viewers from the get-go in 480p, and sure, the expectations are different now.
That's what I think about, because like you can start a YouTube channel when you look back at our old videos and you're like, oh, the barrier to entry is like nothing. You can make an absolutely nothing video, but at least you have something to say and it's worth putting up.
Yeah.
But when you do that today, there's all this other expectation and all these other things that people are used to when watching videos on YouTube that you might not really have right off the bat. So you kind of have to get your feet wet and explore a little bit of production. But I do agree that there's a way to dive into making videos way before getting into the world of buying a camera.
Absolutely.
And that's even more true than ever with this new iPhone 11 camera. So it's a good topic.
Absolutely.
All right, so I want to talk about some recent news with you. I want to talk Tesla. I'm sure you're shocked, Andrew. I want to talk Tesla because there's always new Tesla news, but the latest thing is what I would consider Tesla's biggest software update yet, version 10. Now, you and I are both Tesla owners.
We are.
I do not have version 10 on my car, the latest software. Do you have version 10, or are you getting it?
It was installed last night, but
You
I'm
have
here
version
in
10.
New York, so I have not driven it yet.
Okay, so there's a lot happening in version 10. First of all, there are some new... I can just sort of run through the features. There are some new games you can play in the arcade mode. Cuphead. Never played it, but it's got a great rep.
It's a fantastic game.
I've heard good things.
So frustrating, but very good.
Exactly. And then there's also Netflix, Hulu, and YouTube support. So you can watch full screen, high definition YouTube, Hulu, and Netflix videos, which is pretty impressive. I don't think you can do that while the car's in drive.
No.
I think you have to be parked, but the fact that you can actually load HD
Maybe
videos.
Someday.
I mean, people have been sending me screenshots of them at a supercharger just watching videos.
Yeah.
That's good enough by
great.
itself. It's awesome. But it's also on the horizontal screen of the Model 3, and I haven't seen any Model S's with this update yet, and so I'm not exactly sure how mine's going to look. But Spotify, I'm super ready for Spotify.
Big.
That's a big update. I've always been just going from Bluetooth straight into the car, and so you lose a little bit of quality through Bluetooth, and the album art's not always correct, and there's other sort of quirks about it, but now Spotify is built into the car. All that is awesome. But my favorite feature, and this is, I use the word favorite loosely here, but the most interesting feature by far is this Smart Summon update.
Sure.
Have you seen any of these? Do you know what Smart Summon does?
Absolutely.
Have you? I guess you haven't tried it yet, but have you seen any videos of people trying Smart Summon?
I have seen videos it's been in beta for months, right?
Right.
And I've seen some of the old ones, and it was so bad. And now that it's released, it's only a little bad, which is awesome.
Yeah, or I think Andrew said this first. What did you call it?
I said we're seeing all these videos of it being in like parking lots and seeing it have to interact with humans, and I called it kind of like the Galaxy Fold. It was something that works perfectly in a controlled environment, but when we're seeing it in a parking lot with people just walking across the street and turning out of parking spots, it's been pandemonium on Twitter.
It's pretty rough.
So, yeah.
These videos, man. There's a great video, and there's already like dozens that you can go watch. And I think The Verge put up a YouTube video about how it's just causing chaos everywhere. But there's a great one of, it's like, there's two examples. One is it's in broad daylight, and there's a guy trying to have it pull out of a parking space, and he's literally 30 feet from the car, but he's just trying it just to see. And it tries to pull out the space, and then backs in, and then tries to pull out again, and people are walking past it and like trying to get out the way. And then a pickup truck tries to pull in the other direction, and it's like now trying again in front of the pickup truck. So it's blocking traffic now, and it just keeps going back and forth for, I'm going to not exaggerate, I think a full minute. It's trying to get out of this parking space. And eventually it gets over to him, but it was just a really poor example. But the other example, which is why I think it's like the Galaxy Fold, is it had a sort of a great version where it was pouring rain, and this family had their Model 3 across a rainy parking lot, and instead of walking all the way across the parking lot, they summoned it through the rain to the door of the store, and they were just jogged across the rain into the car. That's one version of it, where like you get a glimpse into the future, and it's exciting. But I'm just sort of curious about your overall Tesla story, because if I remember correctly, you used to be one of the most outspoken critics about Elon's companies.
I was.
How did that go? Was it the test drive that won you over, or was there a whole process there?
Yeah, for years I had heard quality control problems of the S and the X, and I had always had in the back of my mind that Tesla was making cool cars.
Yeah.
I just didn't feel that their quality merited their price tag, and that you were paying for the technology more so than you were paying for the vehicle itself. And I like driving cars. And so I had driven a Model S, one of the earlier ones, I believe it was a P85D, and was not impressed by it because while it was fast in a straight line, I felt like the steering was very vague, and it didn't feel good. It felt like a prototype beta car to me. And when the Model 3 came out, they had, as you know, tons of issues trying to get them off the line.
Lots of hype, lots of issues.
Delays. They didn't hit their price targets. They had all sorts of quality control issues from the beginning.
Yeah.
And as you kind of are in the internet hype mind, it's easy to get kind of caught up in, oh, this thing sucks or whatever, without really having tried it.
Yeah.
And I finally decided when I was going to go buy a new car that I would just for fun, so that I could
just
eliminate
test drive it.
Eliminate it as an option.
Just be able to say you tried, and that's why you didn't do it.
And be like, yeah, the Model 3 performance.
Okay.
And I knew that I wasn't going to like the interior. I thought it wasn't that great looking of a car. And I went and I had a 10-minute test drive, and then I bought the car.
That's all it took.
It convinced me.
That's kind of how my process was. Is I was pretty convinced I wanted one.
Sure.
But then I did the test drive, and I was like, I'm definitely going to get this car. It was the test drive.
It's really hard to describe. I mean, you have to drive an electric vehicle to really know.
Yeah, I agree.
The regen braking and the acceleration and the response on the throttle is incredible. There's no turbo lag. The second you push the accelerator, you're going.
Yeah. And that's been a thing you kind of just you get used to it, and you drive another car.
Oh, it's
and
horrible.
It's very different. There's a couple other things. I've become kind of that guy who's like so used to the Tesla because it's been 3 years now.
Sure.
I had an instance where I went down to family in Florida, and I was driving I think my mom's car to like go get present shopping or something like that. And I had a moment where I got out of the car, closed the door, and started walking into the store. Realized as I was walking away from the car that it was still on, and I was walking away from a running car. Because when you get out of
I've done that.
Yeah, you get out of an electric car and you just get out and it's off.
There's
and
no
you walk
power
away.
button.
Yeah, I had to walk back to the car and turn it off and really shame myself for a second there. So this is a thing that happens. You get the test drive, you get either obsessed or you don't care. Most people sort of flip that switch, and
Sure.
that's how it happens.
And I love the car as it is. I think I actually think the interior on the Model 3 is really good.
Yeah.
And the newest Model S's handle way better than the older ones. Have you driven one of the newest ones? I don't remember what they call those.
They just call it performance now.
The new refresh, though, it's not really an interior refresh, but they changed battery pack design. And
Right. They call it Raven.
Right.
Yeah. So I haven't driven. Oh, you've driven a Raven.
The handling is so much better than the older Model S's. It's not even funny.
Interesting. I'm a big fan of my car right now, which is obviously a 3-year-old, still relatively new car.
Your lease is up soon, right?
It is. You know what's funny? We've talked about how Tesla doesn't do refreshes, but they kind of do.
They do.
I've been waiting for the inevitable Tesla refresh, and my lease ended a week ago.
Oh.
And I figured out as I was texting my Tesla rep, you can do a lease extension for up to 6 months, 1 month at a time. And it's a bit more expensive,
Sure.
but it's better than buying an outdated car and then having a refresh happen instantly.
Yeah.
So I've extended my lease 6 months, and now it's up in March.
I think that's smart.
And they better refresh it by March, or I'm going to feel like a terrible... I've wasted many dollars.
You've heard it, Elon.
Yeah.
Let's
So please make it happen. Have you seen also, not to keep going into Tesla, but the refresh of Model S going around a track and having a sort of track oriented version. Do you care at all about that?
The plaid version.
The plaid Model S.
I think that's sick because the main criticism behind Tesla is that it's really fast in a straight line and that's all it can do.
Right.
And I think the 3 was the first time Tesla actually kind of proved to people that actually their cars really can handle excellently, and the low center of gravity because the battery pack is on the floor is a really big advantage, despite the car being, my Model 3 weighs as much as a Ford F-150.
Yeah.
And it's a tiny little
That's
sedan.
Crazy stat.
It's bananas.
Wow.
It's 4,100 pounds.
Yeah.
But I think with the Model 3, they kind of proved that they were capable of it. And I think they further reiterated on that with the Raven. And so I'm really excited for the new plaid version and eventually what will become the Roadster.
The Roadster, yeah.
Because I think it's Tesla really flexing their muscles and saying, we're already very far ahead in terms of powertrain, but now we're starting to lock down the categories that we previously, quote unquote, weren't able to do. And they're putting other automakers kind of to shame.
I've kind of thought about this as a whole topic of just talking about the state of electric cars. And I sort of, we glossed over it before, but obviously Porsche made a huge stride of they're releasing their Taycan sometime soon. But it's obviously the competition is making both of them take pretty far steps forward. So
which is awesome.
Yeah, we win.
Yeah,
we win that way.
We do.
Sweet.
So every time Mac Pro or iMac Pro comes up on our channel, we inevitably get a ton of, why don't you just build a PC? And then some people understand that we're using Final Cut, so it's, why don't you build a Hackintosh?
Yep.
I just don't think people understand how complicated that is. So for people who watch Snazzy, he does a lot of videos on it, a lot of really great videos on it. And I would just love to hear what your thoughts on Hackintoshes in general are, and why it's not just like a go buy a bunch of cheap parts and now you're on Mac OS.
Yeah. What's the state of the Hackintosh in October 2019?
It's kind of a weird, it's in limbo a little bit. Catalina is proving to be a little bit difficult because of all the new security features built into the OS. There are Catalina builds running pretty well, but Mojave was kind of, I think, peak Hackintosh. And every year, it's kind of the reverse. I mean, there's almost this kind of renaissance of Hackintoshing right now, because you look at like iOS jailbreaks. They're completely different, by the way, but there's a little bit of parallel. They were really popular in the early days of the iPhone when the hardware was new. And then it became increasingly difficult as Apple started patching exploits. And now it's basically not a thing. Yeah. Unless you have... Did you hear about the latest thing from the...
No. What's the latest
thing? Every phone from the iPhone 4S to the iPhone 10 can be permanently jailbroken because of a bootloader exploit.
Oh, a quick bug that somebody
forever,
found.
It can always be jailbroken. It's a really big deal.
Nice. Wow.
Anyway, so if you're on those, that's a whole different... Sorry, I'm getting off topic. So you look at the Mac, because Apple's hardware, year by year, is becoming more and more similar to everyone else's hardware. They do have the T2 chip in their Macs that does SSD controlling and boot security, but it really is. It's a PC. Right. There's nothing inherently special about a Mac.
The newest Mac Pro that's coming out soon is a tower, and we'll be able to see a lot of those parts.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's not really anything super special about the specific hardware, and so it's been increasingly easy to trick the bootloader, to trick the EFI is what they call it, the piece of software that talks to the chipset on the motherboard that convincing it that it's a PC.
It's legit.
Yeah. And so I think in the last year or so, it's actually really easy to make a Hackintosh, almost to the point where there's almost a universal install guide for everyone to get the system booted and ready to go. Now, there are, getting your network card to work and Bluetooth sometimes is a little hassle.
So there's always, that would be a really big step. So for those who don't know, a long time ago, I did a Hackintosh build because I was in a similar spot, and I don't even remember what version of macOS this was, but I wanted to try macOS. I didn't even have a software reason. I wasn't on Final Cut yet, but I was like, I'd like to try a Mac. I had a Mac Mini, but I was like, I want to do a Hackintosh and have like a really powerful machine. And at that point, it was like, well, there's only a couple different motherboards and a couple different CPUs and graphics cards, and you have to follow, a certain build guide that's been proven to work, and you can sort of go through these steps, and maybe it'll probably work.
Yeah.
And if you can get it to work and you follow these steps perfectly, then you have a Hackintosh and you have a PC that will boot on Mac OS X or whatever version it was. My biggest downside with my Hackintosh that I built was you could not turn it off.
Yeah. Or put it to sleep.
You couldn't put it to sleep.
Never update it.
Never update it. So I had mine running. If there was a security issue, I could not update Mac OS. So I had a constantly on, always running Hackintosh for probably about a year there, and I gave it a shot. But it's good to know that it's actually gotten easier. But now we're coming up on the new Mac Pro coming out, and obviously that's going to be much more expensive. But it seems like the Hackintosh scene is going to keep thriving.
It is. It really depends. I mean, what you say still holds merit. I think it's important to consider A, your budget, and B, what kind of work you're expecting to do on your Hackintosh.
Okay.
Because it is inarguable, and people will try to argue with you, that building a Hackintosh is not only not easier to make, but once it's up, that it's not always a sunny day. Mm-hmm. There are sometimes issues with system updates. There are sometimes issues about hardware incompatibilities. Especially if you're working in a pro workflow, some video codecs are not enabled, or they're slow, or they're throttled, or they're limited. And so people ask me, as the guy who makes a lot of Hackintoshes on his channel, why do you have an iMac Pro in the background? And my answer is because it always works all the time 100%. And a Hackintosh, no matter how good it is, cannot do that.
Right.
And to me, it's not worth it to have to, even if it's only troubleshooting, 1 or 2 hours a year, that's more than I want to have to do.
Exactly. And when it comes to support, or when it even comes to something like you said, a bug being found, or you have to update macOS real quick because you don't want that security vulnerability, you just can't make that happen quite as easily on a Hackintosh. So, and when you think about it, it doesn't sound that surprising. Like, wow. Yeah, it's literally called the Hackintosh. It's a Hackintosh. It's kind of a hack together thing. Something we slap together doesn't work 100% all the time. How weird. Yeah. No, it's a fun world. I'm glad it still is a thing that people work on, and it's an option for some people. Like you said, you have to know what you want to do with it. But I'm with you, where I know exactly what I want to do on my computer, and that does not include troubleshooting and small things like that. So I've been on this iMac Pro. I am unbelievably ready for the Mac Pro and dual monitors. I'm so ready for it. Do you know, you're definitely going to get? Absolutely. Do you know what spec you're going to get, or you're just going to see what happens? So pricing has yet to be announced. Exactly. That's going to be a pretty large part of it. We want to buy a base model and then see how far we can push the upgrades as part of a video. Smart. But I think if it's anything like the iMac Pro, which I'm led to believe it's going to be relatively similar, Apple likes to keep the same ASP, average sales price, across their line. And so what you generally see is that as you upgrade the machine upgrades are actually pretty reasonable. Okay. They used to charge you an arm and a leg for RAM and for CPU upgrades. Always RAM, yeah. And it's still rough, but by the time you do it yourself, you're really not saving much money, if any at all. Okay. And because this is an open box, right? The Mac Pro, you pull off the side panel and you're ready to go. Yeah. I can't imagine Apple's going to rip people off because they just won't do it. I can definitely imagine Apple ripping people off. I'll just put that out there. I can definitely imagine that. Yeah, but if you can replace the RAM yourself in 5 minutes. Yes. Are they going to charge double for that? Yeah, maybe. Because I've seen over the years, and I've thought the same thing. And I guess you can't upgrade the RAM in a lot of these computers that I'm remembering in recent memory, but they would charge 1.5 times the price of the RAM that you could upgrade yourself. That's maybe a good point. I don't know if maybe the average customer of the Mac Pro is less likely to do that, or if they're going to just buy whatever they think will work from Apple. Because there's going to be enterprise customers that just buy the completed box.
That's who's buying this machine. And education market, and they don't want to pay some IT guy to switch out the RAM. They just want it ready to go.
Yeah, so that might happen. So we'll see. But I hope not. But I have high hopes for this Mac Pro. I'm curious because we're both creators and we edit video and things like that all the time. Are you a dual monitor guy? You have the iMac Pro, so you're just a one monitor guy.
I am a one monitor man. And I always have been.
Really?
I even had a PC for a while that I was using back in my Premiere days.
Yeah.
That I was using for video editing, and I tried two monitors, didn't like it, and went back to one.
Oh my god! When I was in high school, I was a triple monitor guy, and when I went to college,
one of those.
I went down. Yeah, one of those.
PCMR.
I eventually turned into a dual monitor guy, and that was kind of my sweet spot of like having the amount of real estate I need. The bezels have to be thin enough. Like there's certain monitors I like for that. But geez, I've been on this iMac Pro with these thick bezels for a while, and I've been just itching to have dual monitors again, and that's a big reason why I'm excited for the Mac Pro.
That's a good reason.
Is also to just have ports right in front of me and dual monitors.
And you can't throw another monitor next to the iMac. People do it, and it looks weird. And
I see that all the time.
There's like 3 inches in between them.
It doesn't look great.
No.
Yeah, and the way it looks has way too much of an effect on how I feel about it.
Unfortunately, I'm in the same boat.
Yeah.
So people who don't know Quinn that well, or they might not even know about it if they only follow you on YouTube and not on Twitter, but you have a pretty active Periscope. Maybe not pretty active, but you're on Periscope.
I am the last man using Periscope.
Might possibly
You're welcome,
be
Jack
the last
Dorsey.
I love it.
They're hilarious, first of all.
Thanks.
I specifically remember one when a bunch of mainstream media reporters got mad that Apple invited a ton of creators to do some early shoots, and you just kind of went off on them. I've watched it multiple times. I tried to find it. I couldn't this morning. But,
probably for the better.
Does the app still work?
Yeah, well,
Periscope app?
I do it through Twitter.
Okay, so it probably isn't much of a Periscope app.
I think you can see archived Periscopes through the Periscope app.
Okay.
But
through the app? Okay, I was just online trying to do it, but
every week it's different. Twitter never knows what they're doing, so
true.
So live streaming is something you're obviously very good at. It's extremely entertaining, and I was just wondering if, since Periscope, like you said, you might be the last person on there.
Why Periscope?
Why Periscope? Do you have any plans in the future for going somewhere else live stream? I mean, is live just something that you do for fun every once in a while and don't consider it the same as your videos? Okay.
It is. I have thought in certain times to do a video live stream, but I don't like the idea of putting less polished off the cuff content on my main channel, and then I don't really want to. The reality is I'm lazy. I don't want to have to spend time starting a new channel and making it my live streaming channel, or utilizing something like Instagram Live, because my largest social following other than YouTube is Twitter.
Okay.
And so that's generally where I do stuff, and I'm hyper active on Twitter to the point where I really got to stop because it's a big waste of time. I don't get anything in return.
All right, Elon.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just a place for me to spill my thoughts, and it's been fun. But one of the reasons I'm looking into starting a podcast is because I want to do it a little more polished without having to go out and make a full-blown video.
A whole other thing. Yeah. I was wondering, I was watching it and I was like, Instagram TV kind of made sense for this, and then I was like, I don't even know how to get to Instagram TV. So I looked at. I don't think you have one. And
is the button still there? I don't even think the button's still there.
The button's.
I don't think
I
you
think
have
the button's
a button.
Gone. And
you have a button.
Yeah.
You don't have
well, it's on my profile. Yeah.
Yeah, it's on your
profile. But then that would just be my IGTV
it used to be
channel.
on the home feed, right?
You used to have one at the top of the home feed. And I don't know if
like
that's
blink
gone.
orange for a while to make sure you knew it was there.
Yeah, that was a fun time. They were like, please, this is all we want you to click.
We tried.
Vertical videos.
Please click this. Yeah. And then there was a little bit where, I mean,
it's still there.
It's still there,
and
but it's not
red.
colored.
Yeah,
wait,
I got
what?
a little dot.
Oh, it is there. Okay.
Granted, I don't have a badge on the app icon, so that's good.
Our brains have ignored that there for a little while.
It may as well not exist.
Because there's a separate IGTV app, and no one really downloads
I didn't even know
that.
there's a separate app.
Yeah, there's a separate app, but that's where you would like explore and find what's trending and all that stuff. At this point now, people don't really do that. They'll find it in like the Explore tab on Instagram Explore, which is a good integration. But do you Instagram live stream at all or no?
Almost never.
Yeah.
I've tried it a couple times, but I just don't have enough people to follow. And then I feel like because it's not, is it viewable after the fact now? I guess it is now.
For 24 hours, like a story.
For a while, it didn't used to be.
Oh.
And
right.
it was like if you're not there, then it's done for. And I liked that Periscope was archived.
Right.
And they're still archived, so you can watch the Periscopes I did years ago today.
Right. Instagram would disappear.
Nice.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel I love them too, by the way. I think live streams are a whole separate skill.
It's very different.
Yeah. It's something where like a lot of people would ask why YouTubers who hate YouTube so much, why don't they go to Twitch? Because Twitch is this big competitor, but this gigantic element of that is that live streaming is a different skill, and broadcasting and sort of being on for this extended period of time and knowing how to transition through things, all of that is a whole skill that I don't have, that I would love to see if you can learn it as well as YouTube.
But I think you do, or you did to an extent. I mean, you go back and watch our old videos, and a lot of them were shot in one take or a couple cuts in the video.
Yeah, but they weren't that good. Like I watch Twitch streamers now who will stream for like hours and be on for hours, and they don't stop, and that's its own thing.
That's true, I guess.
So that's what I don't have that. That's amazing to see. But like I don't know, I've seen like great periscopes, and I'm like, damn, that was great. I wish I could do that.
Do you think part of it is you could do it in one take because you knew if you did mess up, you could go back and then edit it? Whereas live streaming, like people are watching this already. If I mess something up,
that might be part of it. Yeah.
I still do that.
Yeah, I guess just the fact, but it's also like kind of fun. I do Instagram live stuff. Sometimes I'll do unboxings or just like random Q&As just when there's time. Yeah, those are fun. You can just talk to people in the comments, and we'll just go back. I hate that there's like a minute of lag. That's like the worst part of it, because sometimes someone asks a question.
Periscope is quicker.
Is it really?
Yeah,
okay.
It's probably 10 seconds.
See, this is the best pitch for Periscope.
Let's just bring Periscope back. I
bring
think
it back, baby.
We found out of it.
Bring it back to the. I'll start Periscoping again. We'll see how that goes. I'm gonna Periscope today. It's gonna happen. I'm gonna Periscope today.
Okay.
Anyway, I think it's fun. I'm a fan of the Periscopes. So.
We love it. We've had probably every time you've Periscoped something about Tesla, we've like actually stopped production in here and listened to it. Especially when you were when you were a little more into it and coming from your Mercedes into your Tesla and had a lot of gripes with Tesla.
Period.
It was a great phase.
It was incredible.
It was such a fun.
I loved it.
I don't get to observe. You know what it is? It's because it's so honest. Like that perspective of like, okay, I've had this car and my mind was just changed by something, and this is my real honest like. First, was it day one you had the car you did like a Periscope, and like your real true feelings about like how you feel looking at things. Very mixed feelings are coming out. Sure. Like trying to balance yourself about how you feel. Like that's real.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff I want to see more on Periscope or IGTV or Instagram Live. Yeah. Anyway, we'll take a quick break and we'll come back and we'll do some Q&A from your glorious Twitter questions. This episode of Waveform is brought to you by ShipStation. So if you watch our channel, you're probably the type of person who likes to do proper research before making a purchase decision. I don't blame you. Things get expensive, and I hope when it comes to tech, I lead you in the right direction. But when it comes to shipping, it's nearly impossible to choose one carrier that fits all your needs. Depending on the item or the location or the speed you need to get to your destination, there are so many variables, it becomes a hassle to research what's the best carrier for shipping on every single package. So that's where ShipStation comes in. So when you're worried about making the right choice, ShipStation is going to be the fastest, easiest, and most importantly, the most affordable way to manage and ship your orders. ShipStation helps you get orders out quickly, save money on shipping costs, and keeps your customers happy. It doesn't matter where you're selling, whether you're just selling a bunch of antiques on eBay or selling items in bulk on Amazon. Maybe you just learned how to ship some artisan craft that you're selling for way too much money on Etsy. ShipStation is for you. It works with all major carriers, including USPS, FedEx, UPS, and even Amazon Fulfillment. And included in that, they can offer big discounts on shipping costs so that you can have access to postage discounts that are generally reserved for Fortune 500 companies. So it's no wonder ShipStation is the number one choice of online sellers who ship more in less time and know you're getting the best rates possible. And right now, Waveform listeners can try ShipStation free for 60 days when you use the code WAVE. There's absolutely no risk. You can start your free trial without entering your credit card information. Just visit ShipStation.com, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage, and type in WAVE. That's ShipStation.com, and enter code WAVE. ShipStation.com. Make ship happen. This episode of Waveform is brought to you by Knowable. So Knowable is the first of its kind audio learning platform and library of original, expert-led audio courses. So they create immersive, screen-free learning experiences that help people get inspired, learn new things, and accomplish personal and professional goals. You'll love their new course on launching a startup, so you can hear exclusive lessons from teachers like Reddit co-founder Alexis Ohanian, Everlane co-founder Michael Praisman, and GOAT co-founder Eddie Liu, and a whole team of other founders, marketers, investors, and attorneys who walk you through the process of building a startup step by step. You can learn to come up with business ideas, develop products, build your brand, win over investors, and everything in between. That comes with the process. Even if you've been running a business for a long time, you'll quickly find out you can still learn a lot when being taught by the world's top entrepreneurs. And even though it's a course, it doesn't feel like work. There's no homework, no tests. It's actually fun and interesting to listen to. Noble courses come with a downloadable e-textbook, curated resources, recommended reading lists, and more. You can even get a code to share the course with a friend or co-founder for free so that you can learn together. Listen now on Noble apps on iOS or Android, or online at noble.fyi. That's KNOWABLE.FYI. Use code MKBHD at checkout for 20% off. All right, welcome back. So this is our first Q&A with more than 2 people. So we'll all just go through the replies of the tweets of what people want to know, either from you, Quinn, or from all of us, or any of us. We can just go and see what kind of good questions people have.
Sure.
All right, I have a good one near the top here.
Okay.
What piece of tech do you have the most nostalgia for?
Oh, I guess nostalgia implies it's something you've used, right?
Right. I think I have a pretty good answer
Let's
for
hear
me.
it. Let's
Mine
hear it.
is the original Motorola Droid.
Really?
So that was my first ever Android phone. But I remember specifically I was on Verizon when this phone came out, and
Yeah.
the iPhone was still AT&T only, and I was like, I want a smartphone, and that's the one I want, but I can't get it. And then they launched this gigantic anti-iPhone campaign about Droid Does,
Droid Does.
and all these robotic things, and I was like, yeah, that's kind of tight. I like that. So I bought the original Motorola Droid. I unboxed it. That was my first ever phone review, and I was really into that phone. That's my nostalgia piece. I still have one.
That's a good answer.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite piece, nostalgic one?
I'd probably go Xbox. The first Xbox is probably just like
The
I don't even
Xbox.
play on console anymore, but that was the epitome of my gaming experience. I remember LAN parties at a friend's house, dragging my living room TV into the back of my mom's car to go to my
Really?
friend's house, set it up. There'd be 8 of us playing Halo or Gears of War or something. And
Did you bring an Xbox, or you had a friend with an
I would
Xbox?
bring. He had an Xbox. I had an Xbox. You bring it over. You have to get Ethernet cables and connect
System
all of
link.
them. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's system
Whoa.
link. That's what you had to do. He had a big living room, so there would just be TVs back to back. Everyone sitting in the same room, just playing Halo.
Wow.
It was incredible. I miss those days a lot. Online play is fun and way easier, but I miss everyone going to
Having
the same
friends.
house.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
real life friends.
Okay. Mine has got to be the iMac G3. Mostly
Okay.
because it was the first piece of tech that I ever really got. It was the Bondi Blue model, or Bandai Blue. That's it.
Bonsai Blue? Bondi? I don't-
Bondi.
Okay.
Bondi Blue. It's an Australian something, and
Huh.
every time they get mad at me for saying it the wrong way. So
Okay.
sorry,
We'll
Australia.
just spell it and leave it at that.
yeah. Anyway, it was the first Mac I ever had, first computer I ever had. Played a lot of humongous games on there. Backyard Sports, you ever play that?
I love backyard
Yeah, man.
basketball.
Yeah.
Backyard basketball was awesome.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
Backyard's baseball guy, but yeah, that's
Yeah.
kind of where my first interaction with technology was.
Okay.
And Apple.
Is that the one that's over there in that box?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have an unopened iMac.
I know, I
From
keep
back in
looking
those
at
days. I remember that from I had one in school actually. So the teacher was whatever classroom iMac or something like that. But
Sure.
yeah, you could play like solitaire or whatever little. I think it was Tetris actually. A bunch of games on it. So the
good.
schools had those. So that was some of my first pieces of tech. I also remember my first piece of tech I ever bought with my own money was a second gen iPod Touch.
Wow.
And that was before my YouTube channel, before anything on video. Brought it to school. It was stolen from me within like a week. It was great.
Oh,
It was
that's so
heartbreaking.
sad.
I called my mom crying, like, "Mom, I need to go back to the Apple store. I need to file a police report." Yeah, that was a fun time.
All right, so I've got a question for you.
All right.
This one comes from Twitter. Is 1080p still acceptable for a flagship smartphone display, like the new OnePlus 7T and Note 10?
Okay, so the way he asked that question, if you hadn't given the example of OnePlus 7T, I would have said it's more of a no. But if you do consider that a flagship, then yes. So flagship,
Sure.
the word flagship implies it's the highest end, the torchbearer for your technology. This is the bleeding edge of what you can offer.
Yeah.
Acceptable, yes. Ideal, no. You'd want it to be 1440. That would be amazing. But in a phone,
iPhone 11.
In the iPhone 11, it's 828.
It's low.
It's low, and that's, I think, it's barely acceptable. Like, people accept it, but begrudgingly. Like, it really could be much better.
That's fair. I agree.
So 1080p is acceptable. Yeah, sure.
Okay. I'm fascinated by the iPhone 11. The argument that's made, and I think at least historically it was a good one, is that the battery life's better.
True.
Because the GPU doesn't have to work as hard.
This was always an argument OnePlus made when they never went to 1440p. All the way up until this year with the OnePlus 7 Pro. They're always like, look, it's OLED. It's going to last a long time at 1080, and it's good enough for you, so it's good enough.
And they really were good displays.
And they were right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. Acceptable is the word they chose, so I think it's acceptable.
I agree, I guess. I focus more on kind of the color science and the brightness of the backlight. I mean, I look at the iPhone 11 display, and there are displays that are 1080p, some even 1440p, that I think look worse than that display. Now, not less sharp, because they are sharper.
Right.
But the color's bad, and the backlighting is uneven.
The evenness, exactly. The color
is super yellow or weird, blue.
The viewing angles, a lot of things are also to be considered. I think it really comes down to like what you're looking at. So if you're a normal person who's just looking at the screen head on and you don't necessarily care about a lot of the smaller things, it's kind of like judging a car by the 0 to 60.
Yeah.
It's like, well, there are plenty of cars that don't have the 0 to 60 of like the Tesla, for example, but there's 85 other things that it does in ways that you might like.
And on a track,
exactly,
it
would beat it. So yeah, there's other ways to judge a screen aside from just resolution.
Okay.
So if you can hit those other things well, then I'll accept 1080p.
So make good screens, everyone.
Please, as a pixel peeper, please make good screens. I have one actually from CDF Man. So Snazzy Q, what is your favorite thing in MKBHD studio? Also, what is your favorite and least favorite tech product out right now?
Wow, that's a loaded question.
It's a lot.
All right. Well, my favorite thing in the studio right now currently has got to be Mac over there on the couch.
Same.
He just looks adorable.
Just guarding the door.
He's been surprisingly quiet for this recording. Yeah.
He's just chilling.
Favorite and least favorite tech product? I feel like I think about this sometimes and there's no real good answer. Or some people say best and worst. Like, what's the worst product that came out this year?
Yeah.
And that's so hard to answer because I think I said this on the last episode where the Royal FlexPi was like, it is a pretty horrible phone. Like, it was an attempt at a folding phone. It did okay, but like it had a lot of things that were really bad about it. But at the same time, it's a folding phone, which is like kind of amazing. Yeah. So I kind of have to weigh that with it. So I feel like the really truly bad products we don't even really have in here. There's just they're not going to make it to store shelves. Yeah. All right, I have a good one now from MX Johnson, Max. I think, Andrew, this is pretty much for you, but we'll see how it goes. Do you guys like camping or going on hikes? And if yes, are you the guy that leaves all the tech behind, or are you the guy with 2 power banks and a solar charger just in case?
So I love camping and hiking. We've been going to a lot of national parks the last couple of years, and it's been super, super fun. And we had a quick podcast talking about bringing cameras to them and what's a good form factor and all that. I don't bring power banks on any of them.
Okay. Solar charger?
No solar charger. I can't imagine. I don't think I've ever hiked and sat down long enough to get anything, any type of excess from that. I think a big thing is when you're out in a lot of the like more remote areas, you don't get service out there. So it's not like you're looking at Twitter on your hike. They're long hikes. You're not really using your phone that much. You pop it out to take a picture. And if you're bringing a DSLR, you're never on your phone. I guess the only thing I could think of is playing music, but you never want to be that person hiking in the backwoods, like blasting music out loud. So if anyone's doing that, please don't.
Don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy. So yeah, I wouldn't say I totally disconnect. If I had the chance, there probably would be things that if I found something really cool that I thought would be fun while hiking that was tech related. Yeah, I'd do it. I don't try to disconnect, but I don't wind up using a lot of tech out there.
Yeah, I think the thing about solar, I thought that was funny, but also
Solar.
there's a whole conversation about putting solar panels on cars. And I think we'd had a lot of time with a Karma Rivera, which had a solar panel on the roof, and that collected exactly enough energy to power the instrument cluster in the dashboard. It's not recharging your car. So solar panels are not at the efficiency level that you'd want them to be to really be useful on the go. So just a fun fact.
Quinn, you're out in Utah.
I am
There's
out in Utah.
probably some good hiking and stuff out there. You said you visit Montana sometimes.
There's some amazing hiking where I'm at. I'm in the Rockies. The whole area is amazing. I'm not a camping guy, you know. Day hikes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll camp, begrudgingly.
Once.
But hiking, I'm all for hiking.
Yeah,
it's amazing out
I
there.
think I prefer hiking. Camping sometimes. I went out to Colorado and I wish I camped just because of when I visited a friend at a campsite and saw the stars and they got to wake up to the sun hitting the mountains and stuff.
What
that
are
was
stars?
incredible.
They
Yeah,
are
we
amazing.
do not get stars.
Do we have
you
stars?
probably get stars.
We get amazing stars. You can go glamping. We'll do a trip every year. It's the best trip of the year. Lake Powell.
Okay.
So Glen Canyon Dam, this massive, enormous lake that's basically the Grand Canyon,
Okay.
but filled with water. And you get a houseboat. So there's air conditioning and beds.
That sounds
But you're still
incredible.
outside.
You're
And
camping.
you bring a wakeboard boat and you can go water skiing. You're still in nature. You can go hiking. But then you have, a nice meal and a cozy bed.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
I'm for that.
I'm not the kind of guy who needs to be roughing it. I can enjoy the outdoors while understanding that I have the luxuries of the modern day world with me.
It's 2019.
Yeah.
Let's not get carried away. Yeah. Oh, I have one just about this is so in the weeds, but that's what a podcast is for. Tech videos. What's your preferred aspect ratio? 2:1 or 16:9?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I publish in 2:1.
Okay.
I
When did
ju-
you switch over? Because we were all 16:9 a couple years ago.
Yeah, I feel like we all. John did it first, I think, right?
I would say,
Is
yeah.
that true?
That's probably fair.
And then you were pretty soon after.
Yeah.
And I think I'd like to copy Marquez. So after Marquez did it, I was like, all right, we'll do it.
I think it's been about a year,
Yeah.
maybe, since a lot of us switched.
I think
Pixel
that's right.
was our first video, so yeah, right
Pixel
around the
3
year.
review. Okay, so yeah, right about a year. I will say I still like 16:9 for some things.
I love
but
it.
something about the frame, and this is also part of just the way the red sensor looks, but of using the full width of that really big sensor, it looks super good in 2:1. So I'm all about just using as much of the sensor as possible.
So this is at Quinn, but I think I would kind of be interested with Marquez in this. We'll just change it a little. So it says, how does SnazzyQ find Mac tricks? What's his process when he makes these videos? But I think just in general, a lot of tech YouTubers find tips and tricks about different things, and not all of them figure it out themselves. So what's a process? Like, where are you guys looking to find all these cool tricks?
Sure. So I've been using the Mac basically since I was born. As soon as I was able to use a computer, I was on a Mac. My dad's always been an Apple guy. So he's the one that cursed me from birth, I suppose. Anyway, just because of how long I've been using the Mac, I kind of know a lot of power user shortcuts and features. But there are so many things in these operating systems that you just continue to learn more and more every day. And I've been caught red-handed a couple times where I'm showing some trick off in Safari and people are like, hey, you just Googled for Mac tips. So there are a few that I have to look around the web for, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I think a lot of you might be referring to Android, but like there's a lot of little quick niche things that you just find sometimes by accident. Honestly, you'll do something by accident. You'll be like, oh, I didn't mean to do that, but also I've never seen it do that. What just happened? And you'll just sort of take note, and then maybe you get an idea of I'd like to put all the Safari tips in one place and just recall as many things as you can and pull from other places. So it's sort of a nice way to put all the information in one place. I think that's kind of our job at the end of the day, is to combine as much information as we can into one place, and hopefully have it be entertaining. So if that works, then mission accomplished. I like this question. Maybe we can end on it. What do you think of the Xiaomi Mi Mix Alpha? So I don't know if you've seen it, but if you haven't seen it and you're listening to this podcast, just Google Xiaomi Mi Mix Alpha. Good luck spelling that. Google the phone that the glass curves all the way around to the back, because this is a very interesting looking concept phone where we like to talk about screen to body ratio all the time. You know, the more screen you have, the less bezel you have, the better your screen to body ratio. an 80 to 85% screen to body ratio is pretty good. You have a little sliver on the forehead and chin. 90% and above is really good. Maybe you just have a little cutout for the front facing camera. This phone, I think they said, has like 180% screen to body ratio.
Were they going to go over 100?
They did.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, and they only do that because the screen curves around the sides and all the way around to the back of the phone, and then there's just a rectangular strip on the back with the camera strip, basically. So you're just holding a screen. You're holding glass. There's so many questions about it. How fragile is it going to be? Is it going to break every time it even looks at a concrete surface? What are you touching when you're touching the back of the phone? Is that going to respond to your touch, or is it just dead pixels back there? What's going on? How do you guys feel about this screen to body ratio going over 100% for the Mi Mix Alpha?
My question would be why? But at the same time, I said that for the original Mi Mix and the Mi Mix 2, which, if we look at the current smartphone market, all of the new phones look like that phone.
The Mi Mix, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe Xiaomi's onto something. At the same time, I asked myself, why do I want a screen on the back of my phone? Because there have been phones in the past where there are like dual displays. So you flip the phone over and there's multitasking on a separate workspace, so to speak.
Yeah.
But because that camera strip is there, you don't really have a full display on the back. It's like two weird little...
You know what it is? The way it seems to me is it's just them flexing literally that they can curve a screen like that. So yes, the Mi Mix, cool. The Mi Mix has been sort of pioneering for this whole like aesthetic of smartphones that we have of very, very small bezels and huge screens. I don't know if this is them going further into the future of smartphones or if this is just them going further into the future of less bezels.
Yeah,
and it's very specific.
I like Samsung's strategy more.
Yeah, I don't think there's any features for that back screen.
I can't think of any reason.
Yeah, I don't think there were any details.
Like I mean, you said, with the strip on the back, it's not even a full screen on the back. What could you be putting on there?
I've read a couple articles about it, and as far as I know, they just keep showing your wallpaper back there as you use the phone. And maybe they'll update it and they'll come up with some cool features, like a little tiny mini app to go on the back, a timer. I don't know what it is, but as far as I know, there's no actual concrete reason or a use case to put a screen across the sides and the back. They had, tickers going down the side for things like that, but the back screen.
I mean, it looks good. The marketing's going to look fantastic for it. But
the
then
best
you're
part of
hold
it.
And...
Okay, here's the best part of it: the charging animation, which was someone replied with the charging animation. If you plug the phone in, basically all of the phone lights up as if it's like a candy bar, like charging the entire thing.
It looks like the phone icon. Yeah,
that's kind of cool.
Yeah, wait, I'm gonna find it and show it to you.
And it's perfect because you're gonna be charging that thing a lot.
I was gonna say the same. That's going to keep my battery.
Is that a confirmed what the animation is, or?
I think it was on Xiaomi's site, so this is what they're planning. But let me find the charging animation. Oh, here's a use case.
Oh,
smaller apps on the back. Okay.
Okay.
Well, that's neat, I guess. Here's a charging animation, though. People went nuts for this.
Okay, that's really cool.
That looks like the future.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest.
Who wants to describe that to the people listening in the car right now?
I mean, if you picture a phone with this display spilling over the edges and onto the back, you're kind of just looking at what looks like
It looks like you're filling up a glass with water sideways.
Yeah, just because the rest of the pixels are dark, you have this like pouring juice into the phone type of look from that cable. It's pretty awesome. I'm not gonna lie.
It's really dumb, but I want it.
I like it. I'm with you. All right. Well, that's pretty much all the time we have. Thank you so much, Quinn, for joining us for this inaugural guest episode of Waveform. And listen, if you're one of the people listening to this, obviously we've opened up a lot of people talking and rating on Apple Podcasts and tweeting at us what you guys think. But your feedback is always awesome and appreciated. So thank you for that. And hopefully we'll have you back on the show. We'll have more guests on, and we'll keep getting better from here. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. We still haven't reached our Apple Podcast review goal, so we're just going to throw the offer out there that when that hits 5,000, we'll do our Hot One style question and answer. This broadcast was brought to you in production with Studio 71. Our intro, outro music was by Cameron Barlow, and of course, our special guest was SnazzyLabs, Quinn Nelson. Look him up on YouTube, subscribe on Twitter, on Periscope. I know you're all still on Periscope. Catch you guys in the next one.